Hello and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. So I've got some breaking news coming out for you that it looks like Sweden has officially joined NATO. After about, what was it, like a 2 year wait now that they've been trying to get in. We had Finland come in last year, I believe, and now Sweden has joined. So this is going to give NATO some pretty amazing capabilities now that Sweden has officially joined, and they're going to have complete control of the Baltic Sea. Okay, so this is pretty big news coming out here, and we've had Russia as well warning that they're going to be taking strategic maneuvers to counter this politically and militarily. So, this is only going to continue to make tensions much greater between Russia and the West, NATO in particular. All right, so I want to show you on this map here. Let's take a look at this. This is straight off of NATO's website. So this shows all the NATO members basically. Any country that has this kind of like light blue shaded color is a NATO member. So there's Canada and the U.S. over here, and then here's all the European countries. So Sweden obviously is not light blue yet, but it will be changed here pretty soon. They just joined as of today. So take a look at this. I want you to see this. So this is the Baltic Sea right here. Here's the Gulf of Finland, the Gulf of Bothnia. Okay, so this region right here is very important if you think about it, because if there were to be like a war against, Russia and NATO, these waters would be very vital for warships to come in here and transport troops and, to bring them from, the West, from over here in the United States over to the fighting if it were to begin over here. And if you think about it too, a lot of the fighting would probably be up in this area because Belarus is over here. There may be like war between Belarus if Belarus got involved. So a lot of the fighting would be like over here near like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland, because this is the actual border of Russia here. Okay, and then Ukraine. Let's say Ukraine fell. If Ukraine fell, then there'd be some fighting here too. But clearly, this is a major open, area for Russia that they really need to defend here. Should there be a war that broke out between NATO and Russia? And again, this Baltic Sea is very important. We also had Lithuania's, I think it was their ambassador. He came out and he was warning that Kaliningrad right here, this is Russian territory, would be basically destroyed if they were to try to counter any kind of military activity over here in the Baltic Sea. So just think about that. It's very important now that Sweden's a member here, because all these countries that surround this sea here, a very vital waterway in terms of like military capability, this would be very important to NATO. So I think that's also why they wanted Finland and Sweden to join in, because it gives them access to all of this now. Okay, and then they're right up on Russia's border now. So obviously, this is going to create some tensions here. It's going to make things a lot more difficult in terms of diplomatic efforts between Russia and United States and NATO. And we do see a lot of countries, Russia right now, I think their defense spending is at like 7%, 7% of GDP or of their national budget. It's a very high percentage. And the US is talking about moving the defense spending as high as like 1.4 trillion. I'm hearing. Okay, 1.4 trillion. I think right now we're at like 865 billion, and they want to bump it up all the way to like 1.4 trillion. So obviously that's to counter threats from Russia and China and terrorist groups and all these things. Any threats to the United States, to say that, hey, we're ramping up our defense spending. Should something happen, we've got the funds and we're ready to go to war, whatever it might be. So obviously, it's going to make things more difficult in terms of negotiations and diplomatic breakthroughs for these countries if they're going to try to resolve things peacefully. So let's take a look at this. Okay, this is off of Reuters. Sweden joins NATO as war in Ukraine prompts security rethink. So Sweden is officially in. Sweden joined NATO in Washington on Thursday, 2 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine forced it to rethink its national security policy and conclude that support for the alliance was the Scandinavian nation's best guarantee of safety. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson handed over the final documentation to the U.S. government on Thursday, the last step in a drawn out process to secure the backing of all members to join the military alliance. Good things come to those who wait, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said as he received Sweden's accession documents from Kristersson. Blinken said everything's changed after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, citing polls showing a massive shift in Swedish public opinion on joining NATO. Swedes realized something very profound, that if Putin was willing to try to erase one neighbor from the map, that he might as well not stop there. Do you think that's true? Comment down below and let me know if you think that Russia would be willing to attack another nation, other than Ukraine, that is. For NATO, the accessions of Sweden and Finland, which shares a 1,340-kilometer border with Russia, are the most significant additions in decades. It is also a blow for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has sought to prevent any further strengthening of the alliance. Today is truly a historic day. Sweden is now a member of NATO, Kristersson said. We will defend freedom together with the countries closest to us, both in terms of geography, culture, and values. Sweden will benefit from the alliance's common defense guarantee, under which an attack on one member is regarded as an attack on all. Hakan Yücel, 54 years old, an IT worker in the Swedish capital, said of the accession, "Before we were outside and felt a little bit alone. I think that the threat from Russia, it's going to be much less now. The Nordic country would add cutting-edge submarines and a sizable fleet of domestically produced Gripen fighter jets to NATO forces and be a crucial link between the Atlantic and Baltic." So see what I mean? Just like that waterway, crucial link between the Atlantic and Baltic. So it would basically allow now these ships to come in here, warships or carriers, whatever it might be, should they need to bring those into the Baltic Sea. That the Baltic Sea is in a way now owned by NATO. It's dominated by NATO. Okay, and that's very important to Russia, to NATO, because it would give them now the Navy's capabilities from all these countries to be really close to Russia's territory should they need to use the Navy, which is obviously a very important force when war breaks out, okay? So Russia has threatened to take unspecified political and military technical countermeasures in response to Sweden's move. Joining NATO is really like buying insurance, at least as long as the United States is willing to be the insurance provider, said Barbara Kunz, a researcher at defense think tank SIPRI. So what she's referring to here, I think, is when Donald Trump, former president, came out and he said that that the United States would not back any NATO country that was not committing enough defense spending to NATO. Okay, so there's some countries that are spending like less than 1% apparently, and he wants all countries to contribute equally, somewhere around 2% or higher. So I think that's what she's talking about here, that if the United States no longer became the insurance provider, basically the United States is the major backing of NATO. If the United States were to pull out of NATO, there's a very big possibility NATO would collapse or fall apart, and there would no longer be an alliance of nations. While Stockholm has been drawing ever closer to NATO over the last 2 decades, membership marks a clear break with the past, when for more than 200 years Sweden avoided military alliances and adopted a neutral stance in times of war. So yeah, definitely this war in Russia has convinced Sweden and Finland for sure to join NATO, because they didn't want to be the next Ukraine, apparently. So let me know what you think down below, whether this is good news or bad news. I think overall it's pretty good news for NATO that Finland and Sweden are joining. Obviously, if they get more members, that's only a good thing for them, right? And now they've got access to the Baltic Sea. But in return, what this really does is it just creates more tensions between NATO and Russia, right? Because they're encroaching more and more closer to Russia's doorstep, especially with Finland being involved because they're right on the border. And Russia has been completely against that from the very beginning. They never wanted NATO to completely get closer and closer and closer. And supposedly a lot of that has to do with why Putin decided to go into Ukraine, there was a lot of talk about Ukraine joining the alliance and them placing nuclear weapons there or whatever it might be. So I think that's what has a lot to do with Russia moving into Ukraine as well. Maybe not all of it, but at least part of it. So let me know what you think down below. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. And I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please hit the like button on this video. And if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And I hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. We'll see you in the next one.